everyone! In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make a Huggy Wuggy figure from the game Playtime out of polymer clay, kind of like this one here. The one I'm going to show you how to make will look more like this picture. The kind of clay I'm using is Fimo and Sculpey, which are both oven-baked polymer clays. I'll also be using some tools, including a ball tool, some blenders, and a paintbrush. The first color that you're going to need is this blue that we're going to use for most of his body and his head. First, make an oval to start shaping his head, and then make a dent on the very top. Once you smooth it out, it should look something like this. Next, I'm taking some triangles that I made out of clay and just blending it onto the side of his head. I used a blender tool for this part, but blending with your fingers will work just as well. So this is the shape that I ended up getting after all of that. I also made some indents on the side of his head to make him look a little bit more fluffy. So next we're going to start making his body. And to do this, I got some of that same blue and started making it into kind of a teardrop shape. So here I'm just smoothing it out with my fingers, and then it was ready to attach to the head. So as you can see, I cut off the very top of that teardrop shape that we just made so I could more cleanly attach it to the head and it would have a flat surface. And then I went and blended that on. So the next thing we're going to do is make the legs, and to do this I took the same exact blue and started rolling it out into a really long snake of clay. I didn't measure exactly how long they should be, but it's 2 times roughly the length of his body is what I saw. So that's how long I did it. And then I just cut it there. Then I went ahead and attached both of those to his body. Again, by just blending it on. And here's what he looks like so far. So I actually went ahead and baked my figure just so it wouldn't fall apart while we were doing the next steps. So next we'll be making the arms, and for that, again, I'm taking the exact same blue clay and rolling it out into another snake of clay. They're going to be a little bit shorter than the legs were. Hello? Anyway, they're going to be a little bit shorter than the legs were. So I just lined that up right next to my figure, and I cut from where his shoulders were down to near the bottom of his leg where his knees would be, which honestly is probably the same length as his legs. That's how long I made mine. So once again, I'm attaching his arms to his body and then just blending it on with my blender tool to make sure it's nice and sturdy. So here's what it looks like after it's all blended on and attached. And then we're going to move on to doing the next arm. It's basically the same thing, except I took that snake of clay and bent it so that it was at an angle where it looked like he was waving. I actually made this arm a little bit too long. As you can see, I cut it down in the next video. So this is what mine ended up looking like. So if you haven't already, this is when I would bake your charm just so he doesn't fall apart when you're trying to add the face or make him stand up. Because those arms and legs are pretty flimsy. So next I'm taking some light yellow clay I made by just mixing some yellow with some white and stuck that right onto the bottom of his legs and then made some indents for his toes or whatever they are, just like that. So next I took that same yellow color and just rolled it into a ball. Here I'm measuring to see how big I want his hands to be. I ended up doing a little bit smaller. So I shaped it into kind of a rectangle teardrop shape. And then here's I'm adding on his thumb. So he's just waving. It looks like a little mitten almost. Here I'm just making some indents for his fingers. I ended up only doing 2 indents. So for the other hand, I'm getting the same color yellow clay and just rolling it into another teardrop shape and then attaching it on like this. And then we're also going to go ahead and add another thumb. So the next thing I'm going to do is start making his face. The first part I'm going to make are his eyes. I just took 2 white balls and made them the correct size to fit his face. As you can see, I had to try multiple times and ended up liking that size. Then I went ahead and made the pupils out of black clay. I just went and flattened them down and then put them right in the center of that white. So after that, the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and make the smile. So for that, I took some red clay, and just like the arms and legs, I went and rolled that out. So here's what it looked like after I rolled it out, and then I just went ahead and folded that in half. This gave it like the string or yarn look for his mouth. And then I went ahead and attached that right to his face. And here's how he turned out. And now he's all ready to be baked, and I'm just going to stick him in the oven for as long as it says on the back of the clay package. So while he's being baked, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the blocks that are going to surround him on the base of his platform. So for these, I just took some beige clay, which I basically just mixed some brown, yellow, and white together to get this color, and flattened it out so that it had even sides and was an even shape, and then cut out some little squares or cubes from that layer of clay. I ended up making 5 cubes, one for every letter of his name, so H-U-G-G-Y, and made sure they were all the right size, and then I went and indented the letters onto the clay. So here's me making the H, and then I did the exact same thing for the rest of the letters. After I finished that, I went back and took my blender tool to make some lines onto the top of all of the wooden blocks, just to make it have a little bit more of that wooden texture. Then I went ahead after I had textured all those blocks and baked them in the oven. And here are all of our pieces after they've been baked. So the next step is to paint everything. I'm using acrylic paint, this is the brand I'm using, and I'm just getting a little bit. So I started by painting the letters on the blocks. I'm just going ahead and putting some paint into those indents, and then thankfully we can just wipe off any of the extra after so they look all nice and clean. And then after that paint dried, I put some glue on the bottom and attached it to the thing I was using as the base of the platform. You could also make that out of clay if you needed, but I actually had an extra mirror that I'm using. I just flipped it over, so the bottom is actually a mirror. And I did this with all of the blocks in the correct order. So here's what it looks like after the glue's dried and everything's put together. As you can see, it says Huggy, and he's just gonna fit right into the middle there. So next we're gonna make his sign that stands right in front of him. And for this, I'm using some red paint, some blue paint, and some white paint. So here I'm just starting to mix the colors for the sign. I'm starting with the pink. I'm just taking a little tiny bit of red and mixing it with that white. Then I'm just going to take the pink we just made and make the little bubble or dot that's in the side of the sign. Now I'm making some light blue, so I'm taking the rest of that white that we had and adding a tiny bit of blue. And then on the other corner, I'm making another bubble or dot. And then for the last one, I'm just taking plain blue. It goes in this corner right here. And then one more in the other corner. And that is basically what we can see of the sign. So here's him all put together and all done. I think he turned out super cute. So I actually chose not to glaze mine just because I like the look of it, but if you want yours to be extra protected, you can always go ahead and add a layer of that to yours. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps me out. If you want more videos like this one or of any specific characters, go ahead and comment that in the comment section. I do see it. And I hope this tutorial helps some people out. Thank you again. Bye guys!